Hey, everybody, and welcome to Worcester. Or as some people that aren't from Worcester say, welcome to Worcester. But our friend Mark Miller says Worcester properly.
Yeah. Our drummer's from Maine, so we know how to say Worcester.
Exactly. So, and if you don't know who Mark Miller is, he's also a guy known as Sawyer Brown. So some people thought Sawyer Brown was one person, but we're going to get into where the name Sawyer Brown came from. But there's a brand new country music venue coming to Worcester called Off the Rails. And it is directly across the street from the old Centrum in Worcester, where this man, Mark Miller, and his bandmates played, I think in 1985, which make that, 37 years ago.
Yeah, yep.
And Kenny Rogers was closing your show during those times.
That's right.
But you know what? 40 years, Mark, almost 40 years of country music, of living on buses, of knowing every interstate in the United States. You're coming back to Worcester. It's a brand new venue. I know you're excited for that. And tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in the last 37 years since I've seen you.
Well,
we've got a 2-hour show. We've got
23 albums, 51 chart singles, and but really just, what we've just really had a great span of just touring. We've always just really hung our hat on being a traveling touring band, and we just have this incredible fan base all across the country. And the last few years, it's been tough on everybody, but it's really been tough on us because up until COVID, we had never taken more than a 3-week span off.
In 35 years.
In 35 years, yeah.
Which is amazing.
So it was, it was a little, there was an adjustment there, and like, for instance, soon as it opened back up last July, from July to December, we did 76 cities in that span. So we went and we were making up for lost time, and we'll probably do 90 to 100 cities this year.
Okay. Forget the monetary part of touring. Okay. But it's really in your blood that you as a performer, as an artist, you have to be out there. Am I correct in that?
I would say this: we know how important it is to feed the fans.
What do you mean by that?
And we know that's our lifeblood. So that's really what we hang our hat on. Is even forget about the monetary part of it. It's that we want to make sure that if you're a fan, that you never go, if you want to see us, you never go more than a year and a half. And we now have, I know at the last show, there was a girl we know, her name is Cindy Martin. Cindy has been to almost 1,300 shows. And at that show, there was one person that had been there over 400 times, another one over 200 times. So I just think it just feels like, that's what we do. I don't even know if it's probably in my DNA to be able to do that, and all the guys in our band, because there are days that you don't want to get on the bus and drive 20 hours, but you also know what's waiting on you when you get there. And that's those fans.
The whole thing is the energy level of your show has never subsided, from what I'm told. I mean, I did see you a few years ago down at one of the casinos in Connecticut, but it's the same energy level.
Yeah.
And look at, when you started this band, you were what, 30?
I was 23.
Okay. So now add on, and I'm not even going to do the math, but you hit the 60 mark, right?
Yep.
How do you stay physically and emotionally fit to put on that kind of show?
Okay, so this is for instance, yesterday, I golfed, I went and played tennis, and then I went surfing. That's just in one day.
Where are you?
I'm in Florida. I'm at my home in Florida right now.
Whereabouts in Florida?
Right outside of Orlando, near where I grew up.
Okay, you're in that Apopka area.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere
So,
near the Villages.
No, the Village is a little north. Yeah.
You can play the Villages.
Yeah.
When
Then we would be the Village people.
You can play the Villages. You can play the Villages 300 days a year.
Yeah.
And no buses.
But I and also along with that, I ran 3 miles. So I weigh the same amount right now as I did when I was in high school.
Okay.
So I know when the fans come out, they have this expectation, and I have to live up to that expectation, and I take that very serious. And so I stay in shape, as do all the guys in the band.
Okay. So as far as set list is concerned, I'm sure we'll see a Step That Step and Betty's Being Bad and Thank God, et cetera. Change the order?
We haven't had a set list in over 25 years.
So what do you do?
We play all the hits. So here's the deal.
Okay.
I've gone to concerts, and I'm a fan of bands and everything. And the last thing that it was always bothered me is when you come and you have an act that all their songs, and they go, "Hey man, we just recorded a new album, and we're gonna play the whole album. We feel like and I just sit there and go, "Are you kidding me?"
I'm going to the bathroom.
Yeah. I'm gonna go get a Coke,
right.
And I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna maybe buy a T-shirt, and so I don't want to be that guy. So if you come to a Sawyer Brown show, you're going to, from start to finish, if you're a Sawyer Brown fan, you're gonna know every single lyric to every song that we play. We're gonna play you all the hits from start to finish. Bottom line.
It won't be like a 10-minute segment in the middle where you throw in some new stuff.
The only new thing that I throw in is a song, and it's really not even a new song. It's a song. It wasn't a single, but it's a big popular fan song. So I don't throw. I really. That being said, no, I don't throw any new stuff in. I mean, I'm going to play you all the hits.
Okay. So from doing a show where they're all your hits to breaking out in this business, doing 5 or 6 sets a night, 5 or 6 nights a week. Did you ever think that 40 years later you'd still be doing this?
Never. No, because like I remember when we finished the first album, all I wanted to do was be able to do another one. And then when you finish that second album, all you want to do is be able to do a third album. And I remember after we had done our fourth album, somebody from the label had mentioned us as being a veteran band now. And in my mind, it had happened so quick. I thought, well, we're still the new kid. And we actually weren't. But in my mind, we were still the new kids. But you really don't look 40 years down the line when you're 23 years old.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. If Sawyer Brown was not still actively making music, what would Mark Miller be doing?
Well,
you're supposed to say, that's a good question, John.
That is a good, well, you stumped me. You've stumped me.
Yeah, I did.
Well, I produce records. So I produce a band, a Christian band, very popular band called Casting Crowns. So I produce all their records. I produce a lot of music. I have written and produced 3 feature films made for TV movies in maybe the last 5 or 6 years. So But I also am a pretty good basketball coach. So
the
I
other
have an
thing,
AAU basketball program,
uh,
and I am, you know, if I were truly retired, I would probably be doing more of that, coaching basketball.
because the other thing that Gerald Roy said is that you did play basketball every once in a while together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
you know, those boys are from Kentucky. So,
all
you
5'6".
yeah, I can post him up.
Yeah. He's still in mourning because Kentucky went in the first round this year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
From that end, but I don't know whether we talked about this in just our pre-show chat or whether or not, but once the Star Search program ended, by the way, I just watched all those Star Search tapes. You still have that sport jacket with the lightning bolt up the left lapel?
I do not. I don't know where, like my mom was the fan club, and she would do like these fan club auctions, and she would make these available to the fans and stuff like that. So at some point, I still have a bunch of the stuff from the 80s. And like my kids will still send me pictures that people had posted from the 80s, and they'll send me these pictures, and they'll just be, seriously, Dad, seriously, this is what you wore? And I said, it was the 80s. You know, we dressed like the Rolling Stones. That's what you did in the 80s.
Some of those publicity shots,
sure,
with the jumpsuits and all that other stuff.
Absolutely.
Funny. So right after Star Search, you hit the road with Kenny Rogers.
Yep.
For a year and a half, you said. What did you learn? What was it like being on the road? And interestingly, your career now is catching up with Kenny's with longevity. Were there any tools or?
Oh man, it was unbelievable the education that you got.
That's
okay, so this is a for instance. Kenny was the biggest star on the planet at the time. I mean, we were playing, you know, domes and stadiums, and you know, it was the Islands in the Stream tour was the biggest tour on the planet. So every night I got to see Kenny and Dolly, and they were so different of their presentation. Like Kenny was like the ultimate professional. Everything was rehearsed. He had writers come in from LA, and they would write all of his lines.
Yep.
And he was funny. But this is what was amazing to me. And so I saw this for a year and a half. I saw Kenny Rogers say the same lines night after night. And every night it would sound like it was spontaneous.
Exactly.
And it was the first time that he had ever said it.
Yep. Like that lady in the binoculars. What are you looking at? Out in the 8th row. She was always in the 8th row, right?
Yeah. And I remember he said it was a darn near invasion of privacy.
And then he'd bundle his coat up.
Yeah. And he would do that every night, but every night you would think it was spontaneous in the first time. So the one thing that I learned really quick was you can't get bored with the show, your own show. You have to stay, you know. Now, Dolly, complete opposite. Nothing was written. And Dolly was like, she would take 20,000 people and invite them into her living room. And you thought you were 10 feet from Dolly, and she was just hanging with you. Kenny had this aura about him. I would get nervous around Kenny just because he had that kind of charisma. And you knew Kenny just carried himself like not arrogantly, but just like a superstar that he was. Mm-hmm. Dolly was a superstar, but Dolly was like so inviting. And this is what was so funny night after night. So Dolly was loose as a goose. She would go out and fly by the seat of her pants. Kenny's completely rehearsed.
Yep.
But every night they would do 2 songs together and they would finish in Islands in the Stream. And so
Real
there would
be
this interaction. Well, Kenny had writers come out to write all Dolly's lines. Well, Dolly would never stick to the lines. And Kenny would and listen, Kenny was really sharp. So he would have to be on his game because Dolly was going to test him every night.
Oh, yeah, you could see that.
Yeah, she was just going to test him. So that was the cool thing. And then, you know, over the years, like the Oak Ridge Boys were on that tour, Eddie Rabbitt, Lee Greenwood. But I would get to watch all these, and I would study, and I would see what worked. And in doing all that, I would also have to say, okay, that works for Kenny, but that wouldn't work for me. That worked for Dolly, that might work for me. And start to then just I would say all the stuff that's in our show, everything at one point happened spontaneously. And if it worked, it's like a comedian. If it works, you keep it. If you don't, you move on.
Yep.
And so I think, you know, the one thing that I learned was to experiment. I learned that the audience, they're there to enjoy themselves. So if you mess up, if you forget the words, they don't care. They don't.
Well, they know it's a real
They would have
song.
got to see something that night that you don't get to see.
Yeah.
So the audience, the fans, they're on your side. They're there for you. And, you know, there's been times that I've been so hoarse from doing shows that I can barely get a note out. They don't care. They're going to sing the songs louder than me. So that's what I just learned. Some of the things that I've learned over the years is that in performing, you're all there together that night to make that night special.
Now, this venue in Worcester, again, I saw it last night for the first time. I think I'm going there tonight to have supper because it's a restaurant and a venue and blah, 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 blah. But it holds 500 people, and you'll be able to see into the eyes of everybody in the audience. And I said to the general manager last night, I said, you know, bands that have played arenas and stadiums, they love coming to these small gigs so they can really, it's like in your living room. Is it true that you look back to not to the club days, but to the days where you were just getting going and hoping that somebody was in that audience to say, hey, these guys got some talent?
Well,
not that you're expecting an agent to be there, but you know what I mean, but getting back to the basics.
Well, you know, we do enough variety of type shows, all the way from stadiums to festivals to theaters to stuff like we're going to do. What is it, next Friday night?
Yeah, next Friday, a week from today.
Yeah. That you kind of like that night, I will do a different kind of show. I will talk more. I would be more engaging with the audience than I would like a festival or an arena. An arena, you're out there.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah. There's, you know, you do some talking just to show some personality. But for the most part, you're going to rock them. You're going to turn it on 11 and go. You know,
on 11. Yeah, turn it on 11. Because like in this thing tomorrow night or next week, you can talk about the fact. Hi, young lady who's walking by.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mark.
That was my wife.
My wife. Hi, wife. But you can say, hey, we played across the street, and the hotel where you stayed down the end of the street, it's not a hotel anymore. It's a dorm for a drug college, you know, a pharmacy college. So, you know, I don't know how early you're coming in. You're coming in the day before, the night before, or whatever. But the city has totally changed. But, you know, as you know, you don't get to see many of the cities. You get to see the arenas and the interstates at night.
I will tell you this, though, that, you know, and I was just talking to someone about this the other day, is we were doing so many shows from 1985 to 95. We averaged 250 cities a year.
That is insane.
So
you didn't know where the hell you were.
You didn't, and you were so tired. You were tired. I will say this now: we do a lot more sightseeing. We find great places to eat, and you know, we really try to enjoy now being on the road even more than we did, because we just did not. You know, it was just such a grind that you didn't get out, you know. And I would try to exercise every day. I'd either try to go shoot basketball, or go work out or play golf. And then it was time for sound check and then crew meal and get ready for the show. So now we do try to do a lot more sightseeing and whatnot.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Sawyer Brown is not one person, it's several. Talk about a couple of your bandmates. And
Hobie and I.
Before I say that, let me tell you that I think you know that it is absolutely virtually unheard of to be around for 40 years and only have 2 or 3 personnel changes. That is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, Hobie, Jim, Joe, and I, Jim just retired earlier last year, our bass player. So he made it through. Our really 40 was April 1st, but we're calling 40 what the fans from Star Search was 84. So we're calling 2024 40. So Hobie and I have known each other since the 8th grade. So we go back to Apopka, Florida. That's where we met in high school, and we moved to Nashville at the same time together. And Sawyer Brown was the first band we were ever in. Joe Smith is from Maine. We met him in Nashville. And that's where we all, other than Hobie and I, we all met the other guys in Nashville. And everybody just kind of, that's where you moved if you wanted to get into the music business and you didn't want to go to New York or LA. So Nashville was is where we all met. We initially put the band together because the club was to make rent money. There was a club opening in Nashville, and they were going to hire a house band, and we auditioned and got the gig as the house band, and we were originally called Savannah, but then there was 120 bands in the South called Savannah.
Savannah, yeah, not including Savannah Jack.
Yeah.
Do you know him at all?
I don't.
No.
But we changed our name to Sawyer Brown, which was a street in a suburb of Nashville called Sawyer Brown Road. Yep. And incidentally, now everyone thinks the road was named after us. So we just let them think that.
Well, Chuck Jacobs said there was a street named after you, and it was called One Way.
Yeah. Of course, Chuck would say that.
Chuck was going to join us, but he had to take the dog to the vet. So I had a bunch of guys that were lined up. I had Garshaw and Chuck lined up to join as a special guest. But anyway, so you're still excited?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to tell you, it's still a thrill for me to go to Portland, to Seattle, to California, to Boston, to Worcester, and look out into the audience and hear people sing songs that I sat at my kitchen table and wrote. It's still a thrill
to see them.
Yes, it's not for me. It's for me to see them and go. It still blows my mind that that they know the songs and they know the band and it's still a thrill.
Yeah, I had that same type of conversation with Linda Davis, whose daughter is the lady from Lady Antebellum.
Lady Antebellum, yeah.
Are they still? No, they're Lady A now. They can't use the word antebellum because there's political ramifications. But she said it was the coolest thing in the world to go to a concert and see not her daughter perform, but to see the audience singing her daughter's songs word for word. So from that perspective, it's amazing. But anyway, we want to let you go. I know you got millions of things to do. Next Friday night, Friday, May 6th in Worcester, across from the Centrum, the Off the Rails music venue and restaurant. You're going to love it. It's a totally unique building. And we will put down here where people can get tickets. Just go to offtherailsworcester.com and there's a place that says buy tickets.
Yeah.
and buy tickets. Ladies and gentlemen, you will regret missing Sawyer Brown. And you forget the negative part. You will enjoy seeing this. Hey, Mark, have people called you the legendary Sawyer Brown yet? Has it gotten to that point?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how was that when the first time you heard legendary and it was you? But you still consider yourself the new guys.
I know. It's an honor, you know, it's an honor to still get to do this and still get to be out here. And that's why we take it so serious and we work so hard at it still.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing you next week in Worcester.
Man.
And thank you so much, Mark Miller, Sawyer Brown. Have a great day, everybody.